Hey everyone, welcome to the Wilson Homestead. So I thought today we could talk tomatoes. I have grown several different varieties in my garden this year, and I kind of wanted to go through and give you an overview of each kind that I grew, what the flavor is like, and I am missing one variety. I have everything here except for one that I've grown that nothing has came off of yet, and that is the climbing triple crop. I haven't got one single ripe fruit off of that one yet. I have one starting to blush. So what I'll do whenever I finally do harvest that tomato is I will get this video out and add that clip to it. But anyway, look at all of these gorgeous tomatoes. There are so many different kinds here. Cherry tomatoes, big slicers, paste tomatoes. So let's get into this and see what we got here. Look how beautiful these are. Now I'm going to go ahead through and separate these out into the different varieties, and we can take a closer look at each variety. Let's start with the cherry tomatoes. I wanted to lay them out all beside of each other first, so that way you can see the size difference. These are the largest ones. I'm not sure that you would even consider this a cherry tomato. This is Juliet, but it's basically like a aroma style tomato. And these right here are purple Bumblebee. Then we have these three here, which are Berry's Crazy Cherry. These three here are white cherry. These three here are black cherry. And these little ones here are blue cream berries. And then these are Tumbling Tom yellow tomatoes. So now I will go through each variety and tell you a little bit about it, and we will taste these and I'll give you my opinion on their flavor. Let's start out with Juliet. This is one of my favorite tomatoes. I have grown this for several years, and the reason why I like it so much is because it is disease resistant, it's crack resistant. We have been getting a whole lot of rain lately, and these don't crack one bit with all of that rain. Now, the flavor isn't spectacular. I mean, it's just like a basic Roma tomato flavor. I enjoy that flavor though, but also I like this tomato because it's really meaty. Like, most of your cherry sized tomatoes are really goopy and filled with seeds and gel. These are not like that. Let me just cut one in half here so you can see. And I'll do a cross section too. Okay. But you can see there is a lot of meat in that little tomato. Now, I have to bring my salt shaker out because I can't eat a tomato without salt. And sprinkle a little bit of salt on here and give this a taste. It's just like a classic red tomato flavor. Really good. Now, I also brought some paper towels out here with me, and I labeled them so that way I can save seeds while I'm doing this taste test. But it's really simple to save. Now this one I can't save seeds from because this is a hybrid. If I want seeds, I'll have to buy these seeds again. That's the only downfall to Juliet, is that it is a hybrid and you can't save your seeds. But with I think all of the rest that I grew are open pollinated, so I can save all the rest of the seeds that I have. This is the only hybrid tomato that I've grown, and since it does so well, I might actually put some more hybrid varieties in my garden next year. This is a Tumbling Tom yellow tomato. I have grown these for 3 seasons now, and the reason that I grow these is because you can grow them in hanging baskets. So I put 2 hanging baskets on my porch. I put 1 plant in each one, and I get tons and tons of these little yellowish orange tomatoes. They produce really fast. This was my first tomato of the year to produce. I have even grown these indoors in my Aero garden. That was a fun experiment. That's the first time I ever grew these, was in the Aero garden, and it actually got pretty massive and was kind of a mess. But I learned a lot from that. And it was also nice to have some tomatoes, some cherry tomatoes in the middle of winter. So it was a fun experiment, but I probably won't repeat it. Now these are susceptible to cracking. Most of the ones that I have on my plants right now are going to have to be thrown out because they're all cracked, and that is annoying. Now let me cut one of these open so you can see. These have a lot of goop in them, a lot of seeds, and now let's see what the flavor is like. Pretty mild. This one is also pretty fruity. Most of the yellow and orange tomatoes do tend to be a little more fruity than the rest of them. It's a good tomato. It's not my favorite, but I grow it just because it's so convenient to have a couple hanging baskets of cherry tomatoes right on my front porch. I can just come out here, like if I'm making a salad, I can come out here and grab a couple of tomatoes. So that's a plus side of those. Like I said, the seedy, goopy stuff, like some people like that, I guess. It's not my favorite. I'll eat any tomato though, honestly. There isn't a tomato that I met that I actually hated, except for, you know, wintertime grocery store tomatoes, and they're awful. But anyway, if you're looking for something to grow on a balcony or on your porch, something that only takes up a little bit of space, you can put it in a pot or a hanging basket, this tomato would be a good one for you to try. This is the white cherry tomato. It's just like a really pale yellow. Now these plants, they actually got sick pretty fast, and so that was kind of disappointing to me. But like I said, we've had a lot of rain this year, and I mean that just happens to tomatoes whenever you get that much rain. Now let me cut one of these in half. Show you the inside. Maybe do a little cross section of this one. You can see basic cherry tomato with the goop inside. Now flavor wise, I actually really enjoy the flavor of these. It's less fruity than the Tumbling Tom yellow tomato. It has a little bit more of that like tomato acid flavor, which I enjoy. And I thought that I wouldn't like this tomato at all, because I grew another white variety before. It was a slicer. It was called Great White, and I didn't care for it that much. It tasted bland to me, but this one is really good. I'm impressed with the white cherry. I will probably grow this one again. Even though it did get a little sick, I will just have to give it a little more space and make sure that I keep up with pruning it, baby it a little bit, but the flavor of this is worth doing that for. Next up we have Berry's Crazy Cherry. Now this plant, this was interesting to grow. It got sick really fast too. It was one of the first ones to get sick, but man, these things are so cool. It's called a multiflora, which means it sets these huge clusters of blooms, and then you get these huge clusters of this little fruit. And the fruit has a little bit of a funky shape. It's got a little tip there on the end. And let's cut into this and see. Now this is a Wild Boar Farms variety. Pretty average amount of seeds in there. Alright, let's taste this one. This one is similar in flavor to the white cherry. It might be a tiny bit fruitier. But like I said, it is pretty susceptible to disease. I haven't noticed this one cracking that much, so maybe it is crack resistant at least. All in all, a pretty cool tomato. I think you should just grow it just so you can see what it looks like when it grows. It is awesome to see those big clusters of tomatoes. This is a black cherry, and if you have followed my channel for any amount of time, you'll know that this is one of my favorite tomatoes. I tend to like the darker tomatoes that have like the smoky flavor to them. This tomato is pretty good sized for a cherry tomato. You can see, compared to some of the little ones, it has some heft to it. But we'll cut open the inside, and you can see that it actually does have a little bit of meatiness to it, but it still does have a good bit of goop. Now these are not very disease resistant or anything like that. I haven't noticed any of these cracking in the garden either, so that's a good thing. Which I'm not sure if I had any ripening. Like, that's what causes the cracking, is whenever they're like pretty much ripe and then you get a whole bunch of rain and they just crack so bad. Now this tomato did get a little bit of leaf spot and stuff on it, but it's still going pretty good. It hasn't been the most prolific tomato either, but it's so good that I have to grow it. I have to grow it every year. It's just so tasty. It has such a complex flavor compared to like your regular red and yellow and orange tomatoes. It's just so good. I love it. This will probably be my favorite for a long time. And what I would actually like to do is maybe look into some hybrid varieties that are this color. Maybe I can find one that has a similar flavor but is like disease resistant and more prolific. That would be cool. So I'm open to trying some new varieties, but I will probably grow this as a backup just in case I don't like it. These are the blue cream berries, and this is the first year I've grown them, and I'm not too tore up about these. They crack easily. Like there's probably about 50 fruit down there right now on the plants that need taken off because they cracked. And I just washed this one and it cracked just from me washing it, so that isn't a very good thing to me. And the size is pretty small. I would rather have a larger cherry tomato, but anyway, let's see what it tastes like. You can see there's a lot of goop in there. Kind of greenish on the inside. They're very beautiful. Look, they get these little star-shaped things on the top of the tomato, which is pretty. Like, I wish that they were more crack resistant though. This is another Wild Boar Farms variety. Okay, now for the taste test. Now I have tried, I already know what these taste like because I've eaten them while I was down in the garden. I don't really enjoy the flavor of these that much. They do have the really dark shoulders on them. The flavor is a bit more sour than what I enjoy. And I've noticed that a lot of the tomatoes, and this is why, they have the anthocyanin, I think is what it's called in them. That's what turns them black, and I guess that's the same thing that causes blueberries to turn blue. But they're just too sour. I don't want a sour tomato. Like, I want like a tomato that has that acid flavor, but I don't necessarily want it to be sour like this. This reminds me kind of like I grew Midnight Snack tomato a couple years ago, and it had those same dark purple shoulders, and it had that same sour taste to it. I'm not a fan of it. I will eat it, but not my favorite. This is probably the bottom of the list of all of the cherry tomatoes that I grew this year. I'm really excited for this. I just picked these today, and I haven't tried any of these out of the garden yet. These are called Purple Bumblebee, and these are just beautiful. Look at that. Now I have grown, I think it was called Sunrise Bumblebee. It was like the yellow sister plant to this, I guess. I think there's pink and purple and yellow that you can get in the Bumblebee series. I am so excited to try this. Now some of these aren't quite ripe, so I'm just going to get the softest one. Yeah, this one feels pretty good. Okay, that is pretty meaty. I will probably like this if the flavor's good. Look, that's a little bit more meaty than the other ones were. Okay. See what the flavor's like on this beauty. Hey, that's pretty good. It kind of reminds me a little bit of black cherry. Like it's leaning towards that flavor. Like a little bit smoky. Hold on, let me take one more bite. I have to have 2 bites before I can assess this. Now, like I said, this one is just a tiny bit underripe. But I think that once these get all the way ripe, they're going to be a close second to black cherry. Wow. I'm really pleased with that one. I will definitely save seeds from this and grow it again next year. Now for the large tomatoes. This is going to be fun to do. I am going to be so full of tomatoes by the time I get done with this, but it makes me happy. I ain't gonna lie. I've got a beautiful assortment of colors here. And like with the cherry tomatoes, I wanted to show them all together just for size comparison. I mean, look at this whopper. Wow. That is probably the biggest one I have on the table. These are Aunt Ruby's German Green. And these right here are a Amish paste tomato. These here are pink Berkeley Tie Dye. These are Mortgage Lifter. This one is Hillbilly. Another pretty big one. These are Pork Chop. You can see it has a little variegation in there. And these are Black Creme. Let's start out with the Mortgage Lifter. This is a West Virginia heirloom variety. That's the reason that I started growing this one, because I live in West Virginia, so I thought it would be cool to grow a West Virginia heirloom. I thought that it would grow better in my condition since it was created here. And I grew this, I think, 2 years ago for the first time, and I was really pleased with it. But this year I bought new seeds. I can't remember where I bought the seeds from. But anyway, I'm just not pleased with it. It isn't growing anything like the one did that I had before. If you go back on my videos a couple years ago, you can see that the Mortgage Lifters that I grew that year, they were big tomatoes. They had humongous clusters, and it was a really amazing plant. Now this year, not so much. I'm just getting these little tiny fruit here and there. It's just not doing great. I probably won't save seeds from these, and I'm going to try to find seeds from a different source to try again another year. But I'm so bummed out that I didn't save seeds that year that these did really well for me. But anyway, let's cut one of these open. Oh, and I did want to share, there's a pretty cool story behind these tomatoes. This guy, he actually paid off his mortgage selling starts for this plant. So that's a pretty nifty story. I'm just going to cut this right in half here so we can see a cross section. And see, this is what I don't care for. Whenever I cut into a slicer, I don't want to see all that goop. I want to see mostly meat. But you can see that this is a really goopy variety. And I've been making salsa and stuff, so like I hardly get anything out of this tomato because when I make salsa, I take the skins off and the seeds out, and basically there's barely anything left of this tomato after that. So maybe this one would just be better eaten fresh. I'm gonna get a slice here so I can try it. Forgot my salt. There we go. Salt over here. Okay. It is tasty. But all the goop and seeds is just distracting to me. I would rather have a meaty tomato than to have this. The flavor is honestly just like your classic old-timey red tomato flavor. It has that acid kick to it that is nice. The flavor is great, but the texture is off, and like I said, its usefulness, not very useful. But the seeds may be off too. I don't know. I'm going to try this again, like I said, with different seeds from a different company and see if I get any different results. This is the Amish paste tomato. Some of these got pretty big. This is probably about the biggest one that I've harvested so far. Most of them are average size like this though. These are supposed to be really good for making sauce and stuff like this. So whenever I cut into this tomato, it's going to be really meaty inside since it is a paste tomato. Now this one, like I said in earlier videos, I showed you the plants. It got really sick really fast. I probably will not grow this variety ever again just because of that. But yeah, see? Look how meaty that is. Barely any seeds in it at all. So you, like, if you make sauce out of these, you ain't gonna have to cook these down forever and ever and ever to get a good amount of sauce. Alright, give it a try here. This is actually a lot sweeter than I thought it was going to be. If you live in an area where you could grow these, you know, an area where you don't get a lot of rain like we do, these would be awesome to grow and make sauce out of. I know that that would make an excellent spaghetti sauce. The flavor is sweet with a tiny kick of acid. It's a lot sweeter than the mortgage lifter. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased with the flavor of that. Also, maybe if a person had a high tunnel where you could grow it under cover where it didn't get rained on, that would be a good situation to grow these in. Very good. Let's just appreciate all of that meat in there for a second though. I mean, look at that. That is a meaty tomato. Awesome. I had to run inside real quick because I forgot a tomato variety. The reason I forgot it was almost on purpose because these didn't do very well for me. These are Robeson. Look how tiny they are. Everything that came off of that plant looks like this, and also it has these like speckly spots on the bottom, which I don't know what that is. Any experts? I don't know what that is, but anyway, I thought that just to give this a fair shot, maybe I can cut a center section out of this to taste it. But yeah, I was really disappointed in this Paul Robeson. I thought for sure that I would love this variety since it is a dark tomato variety. Oh, and look, it actually looks pretty good on the inside. It's really meaty. So, you know, maybe these plants just got some kind of disease or something. It could have been my fault. I didn't take good enough care of them or something. Could be, you know, user error. But I'm going to give this a taste test here and see what the flavor's like. That is actually really good. Very smoky. Yeah, I might have to give this another shot. I probably won't save seeds from these since they might have a disease or something. But I probably will try to grow these again next year, just to give them a fair shot at this. I don't mind putting a little extra work into a tomato that has that good of flavor. It actually is really sweet too. Like, it has that smoky and then like really sweet. Interesting flavor. I like it. Whew, I'm getting really full of tomatoes. I should have taken Tums or something because like the acid's starting to kick in. I'll be okay though. This is a pretty impressive variety. This is pink Berkeley Tie Dye, another Wild Boar Farms variety, and it is beautiful. Look at that. Pink and green striping. And it has been one of the most prolific large tomatoes in my garden this year. I'm really impressed with it. I will probably grow this every year. Okay, let's cut this little one here. Now I will confess, I have already eaten a bunch of these on tomato sandwiches. It's a little more goopy than what I would typically like, but if I have a great big tomato that is that prolific, you better believe I'm going to grow it. Okay, give me a bite here. Now this one tastes like a lot like a classic tomato flavor, that like acid kick to it. It's a little bit sweet. It's not really complex like the darker tomatoes, but it just tastes like a really good red tomato. This one definitely makes the list of what to grow next year. I like this one. This is a fun one. This is Aunt Ruby's German Green, one of my favorite tomatoes. I have grown this for, I think, 2 years. I have grown this tomato, and it stays green whenever it's ripe. Now, the way to tell, like, you have to pay attention to these plants because they're going to be hanging there looking like they're not even ready, and when they actually are. So I just go through and give them a squeeze. Once you have grown tomatoes enough, you know what a ripe tomato feels like. So, and another way to tell when this one is ripe is it starts to get this pink striping on the bottom. So keep your eyes open for that. Now these are very prolific. They get huge fruit on them, and the flavor is pretty darn awesome. They make a really good tomato sandwich. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Look at that. That is beautiful. You can see, pretty meaty, not a whole bunch of goop and seeds. I already know this is going to be awesome. It's so good. It's very sweet and has a kick of acid. Like if you would close your eyes when you were eating this tomato, you would think that you were eating a red tomato or like a striped tomato of some kind. It kind of has like the sweetness of like a yellow tomato, but then it has that little zippy kick, that little acid that comes in. Yeah, so delicious. I would recommend that you try this one. This is probably tied for my favorite tomato of this year. And I haven't got to my other favorite yet. It'll be coming up next. This is my favorite variety that I have grown this year. This is called Black Creme. And it has been very prolific, puts out these very good-sized fruits. Now some of them are a little smaller like this, but this is about the smallest one that I've got off of the Black Creme plants. So the size is there, the flavor's there. I mean, this is an awesome plant. I can't believe that I didn't grow this variety before this year. I have grown Carbon before, which is very similar to this, but I don't think that Carbon was ever this prolific and ever put out this many huge fruits. Cherokee Purple is another good dark tomato, but I don't think that it was ever this prolific either. This is a good tomato if you're looking for production. Now, I probably should cut this little one instead of the big ones. You can see it does have a moderate amount of goop and seeds, but not too much. Like compared to the Mortgage Lifter, let me just give you a side-by-side here so you can see how much more goop and seeds that Mortgage Lifter has than the Black Creme. Okay. Try this out. I know I'm like running out of flavor adjectives. I need to learn more words. I'm probably just going to say the same ones over and over again. Don't be annoyed. Uh-oh, I've got traffic coming up my driveway. That's my daughter. She's home from work. Let me say hi to her real quick and then I'll hop back on here. Okay, sorry guys, I got distracted there for a little bit. This Black Creme tomato, like I was saying, really good, complex flavor, smoky, your basic dark tomato. And like I said, I'm running out of adjectives to describe all of these, so I keep saying the same ones. But yummy. Number one, maybe. I don't know. Aunt Ruby and this one are tied for first place. This is Pork Chop tomato. This is the first year that I have ever grown this. It's a Wild Boar Farms variety, and I hope the camera can pick this up. It does have striping on it, It's like orange and yellow striped. Really pretty. It has been pretty prolific too, and I actually haven't tasted this variety yet, so this is going to be a complete surprise for me. Get this big one out of the way. And most of the fruits on this plant have been pretty good size, like about this size. Alright, let's see what a cross section looks like of this baby. And pork chop, like, that is such a fun name. Okay, it's got a good bit of goop and seeds in there. Okay, I don't know what to expect here. That's actually pretty good. Now I noticed that it does have a pretty tough skin. I don't know if you can tell, but it has a pretty tough skin. I mean, that isn't very nice, but the flavor is actually really good. It's sweet, which I kind of was expecting it to be kind of fruity and sweet because it is a yellow tomato. Yeah, that's how I would describe this, is fruity and sweet with a little kick of tang. I just got distracted again. I have some visitors right over here beside my chicken coop. I ran out. I was feeding them corn over there and I ran out, so they're going to be upset. I think they were actually just eating the cat food that I had over there for the cats. Okay, I'm finally on my last tomato. Oh my gosh, I'm like, ugh, dying. I'm so full of tomatoes. But that's a good way to be, is full of tomatoes, right? This is a hillbilly tomato. I've never tried this one before either. Now, I will show you from that rain that we got some cracking going on, but this is still okay to eat. It's kind of scabbed over, so this will be just fine to eat. And this tomato, I actually grew hillbilly tomatoes last year, but I think that the seeds got mixed up. I bought the starts from a greenhouse, and I think they mixed their seeds up because it looked nothing like this. They were small, little, like they kind of had a little bit of this coloration. They were mostly yellow though, and whenever you cut them open, like where the seeds and goop usually are, they were kind of hollow. So I have a feeling that that wasn't hillbilly tomato that I grew last year, even though the label said it was. Alright, let's do a cross section here. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. Look how pretty that is. It has some of that red popping there through the middle. Pretty meaty. Oh, almost dropped it. Okay, let's taste this. Oh, I just know this is going to be good. Look, even whenever you cut it, you can see that red streaking through there. That's beautiful. Now these haven't been very prolific, and this is the first ripe tomato that I've actually got off of those hillbilly plants. They're a potato leaf variety, and they got pretty sick as well as some of my other plants. So, but let's see how spectacular the flavor is. That's really good. I think that this might be the sweetest tomato that I grew this year. It's very sweet. I mean, really super sweet. So if you're in to tomatoes that are really, really sweet, you'll probably really enjoy the hillbilly tomato. And it doesn't have a whole lot of acid to it. I thought maybe that it would, since it has that red streaking in it, but it really doesn't. It's just sweet and fruity. So that one gets a thumbs up. I will save seeds from this and grow it again next year. I think that my grandma would love this tomato because she tends to like the more sweet, low acid tomatoes, so I think that she would really enjoy this one. Hopefully I get another ripe one this year so I can take it to her and she can try it. Just look at all of those beautiful tomatoes. I am saving some seeds off of this Hillbilly Tomato. See, I have a paper towel here that I labeled. And this is kind of the lazy way to save seeds. I'm trying to do this one-handed while holding the camera. It's not working out very well. But anyway, I just get the seeds out of there and spread them onto a paper towel. And make sure you label it, because a couple weeks ago I saved some seeds and I didn't label it, and I had no idea what the seeds were, so I threw them away because I thought that I would remember and I didn't. So, but it's easy just to spread these seeds out here on this paper towel. You let it dry, and then when it's time to plant them, you just rip off a piece of paper towel that has a seed on it and you just plant that piece of paper towel. So it's pretty easy. You just put it down in the soil and cover it over and it'll grow just fine. You can also, if you want to get fancy with it, you can take your tomato and scoop the seeds out into like a little jar or something. You cover it with water and then you stir it like a couple times a day until the seeds sink to the bottom and all of the goop floats to the top, because that takes that gel coating off of the seed. If you like, that's called fermenting your seeds. And then you just strain the seeds out, wash them off, and then spread them out on a paper plate and let them dry, and you can store them that way. But I don't have time for all that, so I'm doing it the lazy way. Smile. This is my beautiful daughter Lexi, and she just got home from work, but I bothered her and I said, hey, do you want to come and do a tomato taste test? And she's like, sure, let me get in the shower first. So she's freshly showered and she's ready to try all of these beautiful tomatoes. Now let me tell you, Lexi, what I put on your plate. This is a Hillbilly Tomato. This is Mortgage Lifter. This is Amish Paste. This is pink Berkeley Tie Dye. Oh, hold on. I got lost there for a minute. Let's see here. I confused myself. This is Hillbilly Tomato. This is Mortgage Lifter. This is Amish Paste. This is Paul Robeson. This is pink Berkeley Tie Dye. This is Aunt Ruby's German Green. This is black creme, and this is pork chop. So you might want to put some salt on there if you want to try them. I think they taste better with salt, but you can do whatever you want. Which one are you going to start with?
It's just pork chop.
That's pork chop. What do you think?
I actually like it.
Do you? Alright, I'll let you try the other ones. And so Lexi has decided on her favorites.
This one, what's this one?
That one's Hillbilly.
The pork chop one too. And then
Pork chop, Hillbilly.
What was that other one?
You liked the green one, I think, didn't you? You said I really like that one. Oh, you like Paul Robeson too?
Yeah, this one.
So which one do you think was your favorite of all?
One.
Okay, so that means that I have to grow Paul Robeson again next year, because that's Lexi's favorite tomato of all of these tomatoes. Alright, I'll leave you alone now. You can rest now since since you're done working and done tasting tomatoes.
Don't watch. I can't do this.
She decided to finish the rest of the Paul Robeson. Now, all of the tomatoes that I cut today aren't going to go to waste. I am making salsa today, so I thought this would be a perfect time to taste test this many tomatoes, because usually you don't want to cut more than what you're going to eat, because after you put them in the refrigerator they're just not as good anymore. So all of these tomatoes are going to be put in some garden fresh salsa that I'm probably going to can so we can enjoy it over the winter time. I told you earlier in the video that I didn't get to try climbing triple crop today because I didn't have any of them that have gotten ripe yet. So whenever one of those gets ripe, I'm going to film it. I will put that clip right here in the video. It's 1 week later and I am back with my first triple crop tomato. So let's do a little review of this one. I've never grown this variety before, and obviously it was the last variety in my garden to produce a ripe tomato. That looks pretty good inside, pretty meaty. Beautiful. Alright, now for the flavor. It's pretty acidic. There's not a whole lot of sweetness to it. It kind of has, you know, just your basic red slicer flavor. Kind of that old-fashioned tomato taste to it. And I like the fact of how meaty it actually is. So this one would be a better choice for me than the Mortgage Lifter, because it's so much more meaty than the Mortgage Lifter. There's just more to it. So I will probably definitely grow this one again next year. Maybe it just didn't like its spot in the garden. Maybe it was just a little too shaded and that's why it took so long to produce. But I think next year I will give it one of the more sunny spots in the garden and see how it does. Alright guys, that does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you next time here on the Wilson Homestead. Bye guys.